Hello, everyone, and welcome into the WST post-game reaction. My name is Connor Hrabchak, soon to be joined by Tyson Rewucki. He's a content producer for 680 CJOB, and he does the Skate and Plates podcast with his brother, Brandon Rewucki, who's a common guest on Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Huss. He's going to join me, and we're going to be breaking down the Winnipeg Jets' 3-2 loss to the Utah Mammoth to close out this three-game homestand. 3 games in 4 nights for the Jets, and they dropped a close one to Utah, who is the hottest team in the NHL right now. 7 straight wins. They're 8-2-0, top of the Central, top of the West. So this was a big game, as big as it gets maybe in October, and the Jets fall just short 3-2. But to help me break this one down, pinch hitting, maybe can be kind of like Addison Barger, hit a pinch hit grand slam here. Tyson, how you doing?
Doing pretty good. I actually have a couple comparisons at work with Addison Barger, so I'll take those for sure.
There you go.
You got to take what you can get sometimes. And just so everyone knows, I'm not recording live from cell block 1. Not a lot of room in my apartment, so I have to go in the back corner. But heck of a game though.
Yes,
just could have pulled it off, but man.
Yes, yeah, it was honestly like the first period was a little rough in terms of, and that's been a thing with the Winnipeg Jets the last couple of games too. The first period's just kind of being not quite the high entertaining, high tempo hockey that we're used to seeing. Coming out of the playoffs last year too, that's always going to be kind of a shock. But after the game, Scott Arniel talked about how the first period was perfect. He thought all 18 skaters, checked well, were on the right side of the puck. They got pucks deep, all of the cliches. He kind of emptied the clip with cliches in describing the first period, and he really hated the second period. And Tyson, I don't know what you thought, but I thought that's where the Winnipeg Jets, it was 2-2 going into the third. Gunther scores that 3-2 goal. Obviously, that's the moment where, they lost the game, but the second period was just not Winnipeg Jets hockey. What did you think of the 3-2 loss, and where did you think maybe the Jets kind of deteriorated from their style of play?
Well, yeah, no, I'm kind of with Scott Arniel on the first period, especially with a team like Utah coming off a back-to-back the night before. I was kind of expecting them. They did a really good job of mitigating the rush that Utah was trying to generate, I thought, and that whenever they did get chances, at least in the first period, it was purely off rushes. And so I thought that was a great first period, kind of lull them into sleep a little bit, and then the fresher team maybe comes alive in the second and third periods, but we just didn't see that. Everything the Jets did well defensively in the first period completely went out the window in the second, and even in the third period. Thought the third was a little bit better, but there was just a lot of discombobulation. The breakouts weren't as clean. In the first period, I thought that the Jets defense did a really good job of getting the puck up themselves and being that one-man breakout. In the second period, we just didn't see any of that, and Utah was just kind of allowed to set up shop in the offensive zone, and it was a tough one for the decor in this one. The first period, solid, but the second one, too many defensive giveaways, too many just broken plays in the neutral zone, and the Jets were really just, it was a very rudimentary kind of game, right? And even in the offensive zone as well, there just wasn't a lot of chances outside of the top line. You had the one from Hayden Fleury off the rush to Taves, and then Vitek Vanacek makes a crazy save. But outside of that, the rest of the lineup didn't really generate too much. And that's kind of becoming the story so far for this Jets offense, at least, is that they just haven't really been able to generate much offense outside that top line at 5-on-5. And then when, the Jets are playing their best hockey, it's shutting teams down. And right now, with the injuries that they have, and totally understand with Cole Perfetti, he was going to be the driver for that secondary offense. Right now, they don't have that, but you got to find ways, especially a team coming back off that back-to-back. I know they're really hot right now. I know they play a fast style, but, these are games, especially early in the season, that you kind of want to have, especially against a division rival.
Yeah, for sure. And you brought up the turnovers, the giveaways, how it was tough for the defense core. I could not agree more. It was that first period, and Scott Arniel saying after the game that was what they wanted to do, or that was perfect. And that's really, he hung on to that first period. I had a theory, and we talked about it this morning on WC Sunday Live at 9 a.m. I was saying if the Jets are putting Colin Miller in this game on the third pair, it signals that they're trying to counter what Utah's doing. Play with pace, the speed. They're trying to counter with that third pair, have a little bit more speed in. I was saying if they played Luke Shen, maybe it's a little bit more, they're going to try and impose their will, quiet this game down, slow it down, win 2-1 as opposed to winning 6-5. And they went with Luke Shen. And I don't think that was the right decision. I I truly believe that decision cost them in this game. Luke Shen had a tough night, multiple giveaways, a penalty that cost the Jets big time in the third. And look, you play a team like Utah. Yes, they played last night, but like you said, Tyson, they're one of the fastest teams in the National Hockey League, maybe the fastest off the rush. Luke Shen struggles in that environment. Against the Colorado Avalanche, we'll be saying the same thing. You know, Utah's just one of those teams that's young and fast and can really capitalize off your turnovers. And the Jets just turned the puck over far too many times on this night. They were still in it, though. Like, it was still a game that the top line, like you said, generated a ton. Still not seeing nearly enough from the bottom nine, but they're missing, you know, their two biggest impact bottom nine players, if you will, and Adam Lowry and Cole Perfetti. So jury's still out on the rest of the forward core. Mark Scheifele with his 8th goal of the season tonight. He's off to an incredible start. Kyle Connor with a really nice play on the first goal of the game as well that Dylan DeMello scored. So it wasn't all bad for the Winnipeg Jets. It was a 1-goal loss. Those are going to happen throughout the course of a season. Utah's red hot. But when you look at the giveaways, you look at the defensive breakdowns, it just wasn't very Jets hockey-like. And the period that Scott Arniel loved, the Jets, in my opinion, didn't even dominate. That wasn't... They kept it quiet. It was a very quiet and, you know, nondescript first period. It was 0-0, not many chances either way. That's clearly what the Jets wanted to do. But in the second and third period, when this game opened up, Utah was the better team, and that's why they walked away with the 2 points. Tyson, let me just ask you real quick about the Utah Mammoth. A lot of people coming into this season very high on them. I was one of those people, not to pat myself on the back too hard here, but you know, I did pick them to be a playoff team, maybe not first in the Central, but in the playoff hunt at least. What did you think of your first look this season at the Mammoth taking on the Winnipeg Jets? So many young and exciting players, Cooley, Gunther, Peterka. They're my favorite team to watch in the NHL right now, and tonight's game did not waver me from that belief.
Yeah, it's the pace. Like, what Utah brings to the table really is just that speed and high octane offense. And that's what we saw. And, you know, especially on the third goal there with JJ Peterka going in there, winning a battle against Hayden Fleury. And that's probably one you want Hayden Fleury to maybe get a little bit better position there so that he doesn't wipe out. But
right.
Gunther comes in late. The speed is just that it was a little bit of a later shift for the fourth line too, but he comes in with speed and he just hammers that one. And that's kind of like the epitome of what this Utah team wants to do, is attack you with speed, attack you with high level skill as well. I mean, we've seen with what Logan Cooley's been doing the past couple of games, right? I mean,
crazy.
The first period is his period. And so, you know, shutting him out in the first period, huge. But this Utah team is building. You can tell that a lot of what they're doing is really, really, there's a vision going forward, right? And then that starts with the owner, Ryan Smith, and how they always seem to be involved in some of these high name players that are available on the trade market and free agency. This is a team that wants to win, and they want to kind of make their stamp in the NHL. Mm-hmm. And, you know, right now, like you mentioned, Connor, these teams don't really, not many teams in the NHL have this level of pace and skill that Utah has. I mean, maybe Anaheim. Lately, they've been playing a very similar kind of game to Utah as well. But, man, this team's going to be a bit of a problem down the stretch here. And they got a lot of great prospects coming up. The defense is solid. I still think maybe they're looking for one more solid piece on the D-line, sort of like the Jets. But Mikhail Sergachev has been unreal this season so far, and he had a great game as well with that goal on the power play, a little bit of a C&I shot. But if you're a Utah fan, I mean, coming into this, I was really high on them as well, but maybe I was kind of thinking, you know, maybe this is like the Ottawa Senators. Maybe they need one more year before they finally break through. They might be ready a lot sooner than even I might have expected.
Yeah, me too. I mean, full disclosure, I picked them to make the playoffs last year, so maybe I was just early. I wasn't quite wrong, but yeah, I agree with you. Like Dmitry Simashev as well, making his NHL debut this season, super high pick for them on the blue line. He has no points in his first 10 games here, but he's an absolute horse. Like he is kind of that Dylan Sandberg mold of like a super tall, rangy defenseman that is an incredible skater, stuffs many plays in the neutral zone. I was really impressed with his game in this one, going up against the Jets top line, which had their moments, of course. I mean, was the Jets' main driver of offense, as they are on most nights. But Dmitry Simashev, I think, is going to be a very good player for a long time for the Utah Mammoth. Let's go to that Mark Scheifele goal as I bring up the NHL goal visualizer again. We love bringing this up on the post-game show here. This is the Mark Scheifele power play goal. And the puck was in the zone for the entire 2 minutes. This goal came with, I think, 6 or 5 seconds left on the Winnipeg Jets power play here. They're one and only of the game. And did they ever take advantage? Because Mark Scheifele, Gabe Vilardi, Josh Morrissey, Kyle Connor, Alex Iafallo, they controlled the puck for this entire 2 minutes and ended up with a goal. Mark Scheifele, you can see Alex Iafallo is going to change and Neil Pionk jumps on. You can see the 4 dot come on because the power play is ending. They need to get another defenseman out there. And this puck was in the zone for the entirety of it. Tyson, what did you think of the Jets? Offensively, again, we talked about the top line, but the power play seems to be coming along here as the games go on, joining what is apparently an elite penalty kill to start the season, clicking at over 90%.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was a great move by Scheifele just to kind of find that open ice. And it's one thing that I think the Jets centers in general do. I mean, it doesn't totally apply on this play in particular because it's a power play, but when the Jets are in the offensive zone and they're forechecking and the centers are kind of playing high in the offensive zone, they do such a great job at intercepting pucks, jumping up and, just forcing more pressure there. And this is kind of an example of that where Scheifele, he jumps on that loose puck, finds the soft spot in the D. And, you probably want Vitek Vanacek to make that save. But at the same time, when you have a guy like Scheifele who's humming on all cylinders like he is right now, I mean, sometimes you just have to tip your cap to the shooter. But overall, I mean, the power play has been looking solid. And that's even with, no shot to Alex Iafallo, but, his impact on the power play is very, again, trying to think of a word without
replacement level, I'd say.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Yeah,
like you could plug a few guys into that spot and get the same results as Alex Iafallo on the power play, I think. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
And then so once Cole Perfetti comes back and you have that added element of playmaking below the goal line or wherever it goes, there's just going to be some shifting spots there. I think you'll see that power play get to an even higher level. And, it's asking a lot to go to the power play that they were last year. But, I mean, all the pieces are in place there. And when you have high talent like Kyle Connor, Josh Morrissey, and Mark Scheifele, those guys know where each other are on the ice at all time. And Gabe Vilardi still, I mean, we haven't necessarily seen it on the power play yet, but he is just so impactful to that power play and really does provide just some more playmaking there. I would love to see Gabe Vilardi and Cole Perfetti below the goal line at certain points. Not too many teams do that anymore, but sometimes just having those two guys below the goal line just generates those one-timers to Scheifele and Connor. We'll see. There's a lot of evolution to happen in this season, especially once Cole Perfetti comes back.
Yeah, for sure. And this power play, like you said, it's not going to be necessarily clicking along at 30 whatever percent it was for the majority of last season, ended up at 28%, but there's absolutely a path for it to still be a top 5 power play in the league. And it's reps like that one in the third period, missing Cole Perfetti and having Alex Iafallo in there, that make you believe that it can still be a top 5 unit because they controlled the puck, had a million chances, and the one that Vitek Vanacek honestly should have had, but it's a very talented shooter, like you said, with Mark Scheifele. He beats him 5-hole. And Mark Scheifele, 8 goals to start the season, trying to make Team Canada. And this guy is on an absolute mission. We've talked about it after almost every single game because, like we've both said, the top line seems to be the one and only driver of offense for this team right now. Mark Scheifele is the reason for that. He's got 8 goals. He's had an incredible start to the season. He's shooting the puck a ton, which I love when Mark Scheifele shoots the puck. There are times in his career where he's become a little bit too pass happy. And when you have Kyle Connor on your line, that's understandable. But when he shoots the puck, he's such a talented shooter and he beats goalies like that with a distant shot, if you will, beating him 5 holes. So Mark Scheifele, been an absolute blast to watch so far this season. And I do hope that soon enough here, we get the news that he makes Team Canada. It won't be for a while. There's still a lot of hockey left to be played, but he's absolutely making his case early on in the season here. Tyson, let's move on to our segments. And the first one that we have here is the hardest working Jet. This is the Hard Hat Award. Can be an unsung hero, can be a player of the game, wherever you want to take this. Let's get to this award now.
The hardest working Jet.
It's the hardest working Jet of the game. Like I said, the Jets do the jackets after their games. One of the jackets is an unsung hero, and the other one is the player of the game. That's what the Jets do. For this, it's both. Our hardest working Jet of the game. Tyson, who do you got? Who's your hardest working Jet from tonight's game?
I'm going to go with Josh Morrissey in this one.
Nice.
And, there's not a lot of names to pick from, and you could probably pick Josh Morrissey on most nights, but in this one in particular, and analytically, it wasn't the best game for Josh Morrissey, but a lot of that had to do with, just having to cover up for some defensive miscues. I thought he did a really good job himself of bringing the puck up. I mean, even in the third period when he had that almost heroic effort himself that for some reason just completely went uncalled, and that was a clear hold. But, it's just stuff like that Josh Morrissey does every game, and he kind of does just bring that steadying force, even when he's not bringing that offense. And so for me in this one, I think the amount of times where you have to cover up for someone else's miscues and still generate a solid level of offense himself, I think that's where I'm going to go for this one.
That's a good pick. Hardest working Jet, Josh Morrissey. He has been, over this 3-game homestand, I think if you took every single game, I think he's been the Jets' best player. He had 3 assists on Friday night against Calgary. And the Seattle game, the Jets got shut out at home, but he was the only guy that gave them really any shot to score a goal in that third period. He was everywhere, flying around, and tonight was no different. So I agree with that. That's a good pick. Mine's going to be Kyle Connor for the first goal of the game for the Winnipeg Jets. Dylan DeMello, his first goal of the season. And I would show Kyle Connor's back check on the goal visualizer, but it starts too late. It was so early in the play. But if you watch the game and you go back and watch the Dylan DeMello goal, you'll see the Jets turn the puck over in the offensive zone, and Kyle Connor just fire all the way back and pickpocket a Utah forward and take the puck back up ice. He backhands it wide, and Mark Scheifele picks it up, gets it to Dylan DeMello, and or to the point to Josh Morrissey, who fires it over to Dylan DeMello. And this is where the Jets open the scoring in the game. But that's where that starts on the goal visualizer. It misses Kyle Connor's back check right before that. Before that, it resulted in a goal. Great defensive play. Kyle Connor, this is something that he's added the past 2 years here. And what made him a $96 million player is that defense. You talk about the offense, and obviously Kyle Connor can tuck 30, 35 goals in his sleep. But if you're getting a goal a game or chances every game off of back checks from Kyle Connor, that is, icing on the cake, if you will, because for a long time, he wasn't doing that. He wasn't tracking all the way back and pickpocketing forwards in the neutral zone. He's done that at a much higher level these past 2 seasons. And that goal, again, the goal visualizer cuts kind of right before he steals that puck. But it was an incredible play that resulted in the Jets scoring the first goal of the game and not letting Utah go down for a 3-on-2 of their own. So I'm going to take Kyle Connor for my hardest working Jet of the game. And Tyson, it's time for our next segment as well, which is the standout stat. And I don't know if you've ever seen this graphic before, but Liz cooked this up, gave us all some pretty sweet glasses. We like to dive into the numbers here on the WST postgame reaction. What have you got? What stat stood out to you from tonight's 3-2 loss to Utah?
Well, I'm kind of cheating here, and this is kind of encapsulates the whole season so far. So if there's any fines, I will gladly pay them for this one. But
fines.
just looking at the Jets so far, they're third last in high danger shots for this season. They're averaging just under 5 shots heading into this one. They did get 7 tonight. 6th last in high danger chances for this season heading into tonight. 8.5 average per game. They did have 17 tonight. A lot of those did come from the top line, but steps are in the right direction. But this is the one that kind of highlights where the Jets offense is at right now. Mark Scheifele has been on the ice for 35 high danger chances for. The Jets have 85 total, and that's just a little over 40% of the Jets' total high danger chances are coming when Mark Scheifele's on the ice. So that just kind of encapsulates that the Jets just need more out of their offense in the bottom 9. Even though there's no Cole Perfetti, you just need a little bit more, right? And those numbers are at 5-on-5. And that's where the Jets need the scoring right now. Right? If the power play is going to start clicking, they just need that little extra chip in every game.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great stat. And honestly, I was unaware. I mean, I was aware because we've mentioned it many times on this program that Mark Scheifele and the top line have been the drivers of offense. But 35 of 85 that Mark Scheifele's been on the ice for is pretty incredible. And the Jets will need more from their bottom 6. And where I'm going to go, and I'm going to single out a player. I haven't done this on the standout stat of the game yet, but it's also going to be kind of a season-long thing. I'm going to go with the fact that Gustav Nyquist has 0 goals on the season and only 3 assists so far through 8 games for the Winnipeg Jets. This was the 9th game tonight. So 9 games, 0 goals, 3 assists for Gustav Nyquist. He was one of those guys that coming into training camp, I liked him as a buy low candidate 2 seasons ago, had 78 points for Nashville. No one was really expecting him to get to that 78 point plateau, but if he could be a 50 to 45 point guy for the Winnipeg Jets in that middle six, that would be a positive outcome in mitigating the loss of Nikolai Ehlers. And we just haven't seen it so far this season. Analytically, that line was pretty good tonight, actually. The Niederreiter, Nemesnikov, Nyquist line. They generated 4 scoring chances at 5-on-5, 3 high danger chances, 12 shot attempts for, 5 against. So that line controlled possession tonight, but they need Gustav Nyquist to produce. We talk about how the top line is being, given the burden of all of the offense on this team right now, and the top line plus Morrissey. Well, the Gustav Nyquist line, the Jonathan Taves line, Taves chipped in on Friday with a goal against Calgary. They need these secondary contributions, and Gustav Nyquist just hasn't given it to them yet. The 1-year deal in the offseason, a nice little buy low candidate, but it doesn't look like it's going in that direction for Gustav Nyquist in the Winnipeg Jets. So that's going to be my standout stat from the game, but also the season. Gustav Nyquist not contributing enough on either the second line or the third line when it comes to that offensive middle six production. Tyson, this was the 3-2 loss to Utah. The Jets will now travel on the road to Minnesota on Tuesday night for just 1 game on the road, and then they'll come back. Yes, the Minnesota Wild. What could go wrong? What are you going to be watching for on Tuesday night as the Jets take on the Wild?
Well, the one thing that I'm really looking forward to watching is Zeev Buium. I mean, the guy's a super talented defenseman. I mean, we saw what Lane Hudson did last year, and now Zeev Buium's kind of filling that role so far, and he's been absolutely unreal on the power play for them. But what I'm looking forward to is seeing how the Jets are able to kind of get in on this Minnesota Wild D. They are on the smaller side, and this is where the Jets can kind of impose their will a little bit. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be Kirill Kaprizov as well. It's the Kirill show. The guy's got paid now. He's been solid so far this year, and the Wild in general. I mean, whenever the Jets play the Wild, it's going to be chippy. Ryan Hartman's in the lineup. He's actually having a pretty good season so far, off to a solid start. But it's going to be chippy. It's going to be fireworks. That's exactly what I'm looking for in a Jets Wild game.
Absolutely, me too. And look, like there's the dirty hits with these Minnesota games on both sides. Both teams always giving it to the other fan base, but it's a rivalry. It's a rivalry game. And look, what I'm going to be watching for is desperation out of Minnesota, because they just lost while the Jets were playing the Mammoth today. They lost 6-5 to the San Jose Sharks in overtime on home ice. The day before, they lost to the Utah Mammoth 6-2 on home ice. A few days before that, they lost to the Devils 4-1. They beat the Rangers earlier in the week, but lost to the Flyers, lost to the Caps, lost to the Stars. They are not playing a good brand of hockey right now. This is a team that came in with playoff expectations this season. They gave Kirill Kaprizov the bag, $17 million in AAV for the next 8 years, and they're 3-5-2, and they are 13th in the Western Conference right now. This is a team that's going to be desperate. They're going to get up for this game when it comes to playing against the Winnipeg Jets. And the Jets, probably without Adam Lowry, who did skate in a regular jersey today before the game, but I doubt he comes back for that Minnesota game. We'll wait and see. The Jets, as currently constructed, are going to need to play a better brand of hockey against the Minnesota Wild, who are going to be very desperate. They get offense from their top line as well. And the Winnipeg, they're kind of like the Jets in the sense where their top line's incredible with Boldy, Eriksson Ek, and Kaprizov. The rest of their offensive group, they need to get more goals. But right now, their issue is giving up goals. They have given up 39 goals in their first 10 games. That is second worst in the Western Conference to just the San Jose Sharks, who they played today and lost 6-5 in overtime. So the Minnesota Wild having some issues defensively, and when you look at Brock Faber, Zeev Buium on that defense core, they have the talent to put it together as a strong defense core. It just hasn't really materialized for them quite yet. So I'll be watching for a desperate Minnesota team on Tuesday night, and we'll have you covered with the WST postgame reaction. Tyson, thank you so much for taking the time. I'd say you hit a grand slam, just like Addison Barger. Thank you for taking the time here on the WST postgame reaction. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. This was a blast.
Yeah, let people know. I mean, obviously you do skates and plates and you're with CJOB. Let people know kind of where they can find your stuff.
Yeah, no, if you want to check us out, wherever you can find your podcast, skates and plates there, CJOB programming as well, Jets at Noon. There's always some good stuff there. We're doing some podcast exclusives as well there, so check those out. And yeah, you can follow me Twitter, Tyson Rewucki. It's a little bit of a tough one to spell, Rewucki, but you can check me out on Twitter there.
Nice. Okay, nice. Well, thank you so much, Tyson, for joining us tonight on the WST postgame reaction. From Tyson Rewucki, I'm Connor Hrabchak. Thank you so much for watching. Jets lose to the Mammoth 3-2. We'll have you covered after Tuesday night's game against the Minnesota Wild. Enjoy the game. Talk to you then.